Hi, today we're going to be talking about the present simple and the present continuous tenses. We're going to be looking at the differences between them, when to use the present simple, when to use the present continuous. We're going to be looking at how to form them, and we're going to be looking at plenty of examples so you can look at them and study them in context. Hi, my name's Charlie. Welcome to Organic English. I'm here to help you become more fluent in English. Today, we're going to be looking at the present simple and the present continuous tenses. These are two really important tenses, and they're probably the most commonly used in English. Okay, so let's get straight into the present simple. And we use the present simple tense for the following situations. Firstly, to describe permanent or long-term facts. For example, fish live in water. We use the present simple also to describe habits and routines. For example, I usually get up at 7 a.m. We also use the present simple to talk about general preferences and opinions. For example, she loves movies. And finally, we also use the present simple to talk about schedules or the timing of events. For example, the train leaves at 9:30. So let's look at the structure of the present simple, how to form sentences with the present simple. Here are some examples. They live here. She loves basketball. You have a beautiful house. I live in a city. The conference starts tomorrow. So how do we form it? So as you can see, we simply use the base form of the verb for all the subjects except the third person singular, he, she, it, where we add s. Let's take a look at the negative. How do we form the negative noun? To create negative sentences, we add don't for I, you, we, they, and doesn't for he, she, or it. Let's take a look. Here are some examples. We don't have time. They don't like pasta. He doesn't play tennis. You don't speak Chinese. I don't like coffee. Now let's take a look at the question form. To form questions, we add do for I, you, we, they, and does for he, she, and it. Here are some examples. Do we need to make a reservation? Do you think it's a good idea? Does it rain much here? Do I have time for a coffee? The exception to this structure is the verb to be. The verb to be is irregular and forms negatives and questions in a slightly different way. To make negatives in the verb to be, we add not. And to make questions, we invert the subject and the verb. Here are a few examples. Are you tired? We're not hungry. Is he ready? You're not a student, are you? So I hope you can see that the present simple is pretty simple. We just need to remember to add the s for verbs in the third person singular. That's he, she, it. Now practicing helps a lot. All right, that's the present simple. Let's get on to the present continuous now. The present continuous is also known as the present progressive, okay? So first, we use the present continuous when we are talking about things that are happening when we're speaking, at the moment we're speaking. These things probably last for a pretty short time, and they are not finished when we are talking about them. For example, I'm working at the moment. We're eating dinner. Can you call us back? The baby's sleeping. We also use the present continuous for temporary situations, even if that isn't happening at the moment. For example, John's working in a coffee shop until he finds a better job. He might not actually be working now, but he does work in a coffee shop. I'm reading a really great book. So I'm not reading the book right now as I speak, but I read it day to day. Maybe before I go to bed each night, something like that. She's staying with her friend for a week. Okay, so that's a temporary situation. She's only there, staying with her friend for a week. So let's just compare and contrast that with the present simple. Here's an example. I work in a bar. I think this is a permanent situation, long term. I'm working in a bar. I think this is a short term, temporary position. Now we can also use the present continuous for temporary or new habits. Here are some examples in the present continuous. He's eating a lot these days. This is a new thing. He wasn't eating so much before. She's swimming every morning. This is a new thing. She didn't used to swim. You're smoking too much. Again, a new habit, not something you used to do so much. Now, for normal habits, don't forget, normal habits that continue for a long time, we use the present simple. Okay, another way we can use the present continuous is when we're talking about fixed events in the future. It's especially common when we're talking about our agenda, our schedule, our calendar. For example, I'm going to the dentist on Tuesday at 10 a.m. We're meeting my sister for lunch today. What time are you leaving? Okay, now here's something we need to keep in mind. We don't use the present continuous for stative verbs, also known as state verbs. Now these are verbs that are not action verbs, they are verbs that describe a state of being. They're verbs such as know, have, like, love, hate, want, these kinds of verbs. These are just a few examples. For these stative verbs or state verbs, we use the present simple, not the present continuous. For example, you can't say, I'm loving this hamburger. You should say, I love this hamburger. Okay, let's see if we can work out the structure, how to form sentences with the present continuous by looking at the examples I gave you earlier. I'm working at the moment. We're eating dinner. The baby's sleeping. So if we look at all these examples, I think it becomes clear that to form the present continuous, we use the verb to be and the gerund or the ing form of the verb. Okay, let's see if we can figure out how to form the negative. Here are a couple of examples. Ugh, my computer isn't working properly. Phew, it isn't raining. So to form the negative of the present continuous, we simply change the verb to be to the negative by using not. Finally, let's take a look at how we make questions with the present continuous. Here are a couple of examples. Are you feeling better? Is she arriving today? So to make questions with the present continuous, we simply invert the subject and the verb to be. Okay, so time for a quick recap. We use present simple to describe permanent or long-term facts. For example, fish live in water. We also use present simple to describe habits and routines. For example, I usually get up at 7 a.m. We also use present simple to talk about general preferences and opinions. For example, she loves movies. And finally, we use present simple to talk about schedules to do with transport, events, things like this. For example, our flight leaves at 9:30 a.m. Now the present continuous we generally use for more temporary things. We use present continuous to talk about things that are happening as we are speaking, at the moment we are speaking. These things usually last for a short time and they're not finished when we're talking about them. For example, I'm eating my cake. We can also use present continuous to talk about other kinds of temporary situations, even if the action isn't happening now. I'm reading a great book. We can also use present continuous to talk about temporary or new habits. For example, she's swimming every morning. When we talk about a fixed event in the future, we often use present continuous also. For example, I'm going to the dentist at 9 a.m. on Monday. Keep in mind, we don't use present continuous for stative or state verbs. Those are verbs that are not actions, but a state of being. Great job. It's really important that you practice using these tenses so you don't have to keep thinking about the rules, and you'll be able to speak more naturally and more fluently. Of course, fluency is our ultimate goal. Look in the description below. There'll be a link to a transcript which will help you follow along with this lesson. Now, don't forget you can also go to www.organicenglish.club where you'll find plenty of other material to help you become more fluent in English. Thank you very much for watching. Now go out and practice using the present simple and the present continuous tenses.